hello to all the ships at sea and those of you here in the seats. We were talking about OCD and how we all have a little bit. Some of us have more than others, but in my storied past and in my not so storied present, I have been guilty of judging other people.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Making them wrong.
No.
Yes, I confess. Father, it has been 42 years since my last confession.
I'll get the tennis racket.
Do you have a minute?
Yeah.
Let me start with A. I've been guilty of judging people and making them wrong, and it's just this game I play. It's called ranting, and I'm especially good at it in two places: alone in my car on the road, because there's so many people to blame, right? So many people to judge and make wrong. The other one is in front of the television at a football or basketball game. The coaches are wrong. The players are wrong. The officials are always wrong. And even the announcers are wrong. And I derive great joy in pointing out to anyone who will listen, even if I'm all alone, at the top of my voice, that was just wrong. So, this has been going on for a long time. Actually, when I was a teenager, which was 4.5 centuries ago, my mother had a little reel-to-reel tape recorder, which she hid under the couch as my brother and my father and I were watching a Cleveland Browns football game. And then she played it back to us later. I don't know who those people were, but they're nuts. They were all straight up crazy. So, it's real easy to get into the blame game and the making wrong game. And by the way, it doesn't just go one way. These are all two-way streets. However critical we are of others, guess how we are with ourselves. Someone smarter than I once said, if we spoke to our friends the way we speak to ourselves, we wouldn't have any. So today I want to talk a little bit about forgiveness, which is the opposite of criticism. How do we actually forgive? In Western culture, we have this notion of forgiveness, which is not necessarily accurate. Forgiveness in our culture has come to mean, all right, you're a miserable, worthless son of a bitch, but I'm going to let you off the hook. I'm going to forgive you. That is not forgiveness. True forgiveness, starts in that place of true recognition of who we are and how we operate. And of course, all of our foibles are easily assigned to that devil incarnate, the ego. Anyone here ever blame your ego for stuff that you do? So I wanted to read a little bit from a piece that Ram Dass wrote about the matrix of the ego. Because we tend to make, especially in New Thought, we tend to make a criminal out of the ego. Oh, the ego is just a criminal. If I could just get that, if I could just kill that ego, then I'd be a saint. Ram Dass writes, we need the matrix of thoughts, feelings, and sensations that we call the ego for our physical and psychological survival. The ego tells us what leads to what. It tells us what to avoid. It tells us how to satisfy our desires. And it tells us what to do in every situation. And it does this by labeling everything we sense or think. These labels put order in our world and give us a sense of security and well-being. With these labels, we know our world and our place in it. Our ego renders safe an unruly world. Uncountable sense impressions and thoughts crowd in on us, so that without the ego to filter out irrelevant information, we would be inundated, overwhelmed, and ultimately destroyed by the overload. Or so it seems. The ego has convinced us that we need it. Not only that we need it, but that we are it. I am my body. I am my personality. I am my neuroses. I am angry. I am depressed. I am a good person. I'm sincere. I seek truth. I'm a lazy slob. Definition after definition, room after room. And some are in high-rise apartments. I'm very important. And some are on the fringe of the city, just hanging out. Meditation raises the question, who are we really? If we are the same as our ego, then if we open up the ego's filters and overwhelm it, we shall be drowned. If, on the other hand, we are not exclusively what the ego defines us to be, then the removal of the ego's filters may not be such a great threat. It may actually mean our liberation. But as long as the ego calls the shots, we can never become other than what it says. Like a dictator, it offers us paternalistic security at the expense of our freedom. We may ask how we could survive without our ego. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't disappear. We can learn to venture beyond it, though. And the ego is there as our servant. Our room is always there. We can always go in and use it like an office when we need to be efficient. But the door can be left open, so we can always walk out. All of the things that we criticize in other people and in ourselves are basically behaviors. That's the most often criticized things. Things we say or do. We criticize. We go back later after a discussion and we go, why did I say that? That was just stupid. And we go back in our minds and we go, why did I do that? I shouldn't have done it. I wish I hadn't done that. And we beat ourselves up for making bad choices. And we beat other people up for making bad choices. And it's this two-way street of desolation. Mutually assured desolation. So, where's the sanity? Where's the sanity clause in this contract? If you don't believe in a sanity clause in the contract, then you don't need to listen to me. There is a sanity clause in the contract. And here's the sanity clause. All the choices that you have made in your life, maybe not all, but most, the vast majority, 90-some% of the choices that you have made in your life, that I have made in my life, were inevitable. You probably could not, at the point you were at that moment, made a different choice. What? Are we mere robots? In a way, yes. The personality is a set of routines. It's a set of programs. It runs. It runs constantly. Even when we're asleep, it's running. In our dreams. It's a machine that operates in a very Newtonian way, predictable way. You pull lever A, you're going to get the little ping pong ball that comes out and drops over the edge and hits the spoon, which flips the other ping pong ball onto the railing that moves down and triggers a spring that you've seen those devices, right? And then we end up with a glass of water at the end of the process. This is the personality in operation. This is that character that you play. And it's okay. It's really good for automated sequences. And it actually has some executive function. It can choose, sometimes wisely, quote unquote, between two choices. Or can it? Are even those decisions preordained by the program? Or by the meaning? Basically, these programs, as Ram Dass explained, the ego mind makes meaning out of everything. Every sensation has a meaning. had this pain in my lower back for 3 days now. God, I bet I had kidney failure. I bet I had some kind of awful kidney stuff going on, right? It's trying to make meaning out of a simple backache. It's contemplating, do I have cancer? Do I have a heart condition? Am I losing my memory? Ever walk into a room, forget why you walked in there? Early stage dementia, of course. Or it could just be the human condition. It could be that when you reach a certain age, you've got your hard drive is full. So once we recognize that the choices we make, most often our choice, the only choice we can really make at that moment, given the level of consciousness and the state of consciousness we're in at that moment. And it's true not only for me, but it's true for you and for everyone on the planet. Everyone's doing the best they can. You very seldom find anybody who, under duress, would say, you know what, I was wrong. I've been wrong my whole life. I mean, there's a trick that the ego mind does where it turns on itself and we can go there, but that's not usually the way it goes. Usually the way it goes is we rationalize these choices that we make and we make a case for them. Well, yes, I'm always late. You can never count on me to be on time, but that's just who I am. That's just who I am. I have lots of stuff going on in my life, so I'm busy, so I'm going to not be on time very often. Well, there's a story. We made a rationale for a behavior pattern, and we call that's who I am. And then we start thinking about who I am, and we start criticizing. We start tearing it apart. And that just creates chronic illness, dis-ease. The same happens when we're critical of other people. It puts us in a state of neurotoxicity. This is the research. When our stuff gets in a bunch, when we become critical of ourselves and other people, our neurochemistry turns toxic. Literally eats brain cells. So the way out of this matrix
Yes, please.
is to recognize that it is a machine operating. And that your personality, as you present most of the time, you're a machine operating too. So if I can see my machine operating and I'm going, it's just doing what it does. It's doing what its programs tell it to do. And I look at you and I say, and you're just doing what your programs tell you to do, and you're doing what your programs tell you to do. So we've got this world of the programs out here interacting with each other. And that's why we have so much conflict. Because my computer is programmed to get the best value for me. Your persona is programmed, your machine is programmed to get the best value for you. And God help us if we have a conflict of interest. The only road to peace, the only road to true forgiveness is to understand the dynamic of the personality in action and understand that the moment any of us are able to witness that in action, to just see it. I mean, we're all shade tree mechanics. We all want to go in there and tinker. God, I know when I started on this road 25 years ago, I kept looking at ways to go in and explore my programs one by one and just begin to do affirmations. I'll reprogram that sucker. That if I work hard enough and diligently enough, I'll reprogram that sucker and then it'll be valuable instead of untrustworthy like it is now. You know how long it would take to root out all of the programs that you're running and get debug them? Lifetimes. Lifetimes. But the simple act of awareness, the simple ability to see the program running and go, oh, there's that. And to be able to distinguish and say, yeah, there's Gene making other people wrong. Here's what I've discovered. The moment I can go, there's Gene making other people wrong, that whole program, just like somebody pulls the plug on it, it immediately just goes, it becomes inert. I go, oh, he's not making people wrong anymore. Okay, the minute I start making myself, I go, there's Gene making himself wrong. It's like these programs are like a blowfish. But as soon as we look at them, again, this is quantum physics. The observer changes whether it's a wave or a particle.
That's right.
So we, by this simple act of observation and recognition, the ability to distinguish it as that takes the punch out, takes the spark out, takes the magnetism out of it. And that's what gets us in trouble. The magnetism, where we get drawn into these programs and as our sense of identity. You ever been angry and had somebody tell you, you just need to calm down? How does that work? You don't tell me what to do. That just makes me angrier. But as soon as you say to me, who am I talking to? I go, oh. So that's our safe word. If I'm ever running a routine on you that makes you queasy, you just look at me and go, excuse me, but who am I talking to right now? And that'll be like a 2x4 upside the head for me, which is exactly what I need at that moment, is to go, oh, that's the routine that I run when I get into these situations. And I get a little fearful, I get a little anxious, and I start running this routine because that's my defense. That's the shields going on. Sorry. Won't do that anymore. So that's I'm going to call it the trick. But it's not really a trick, it's just really, it's another part of the mechanism. Because the mechanism has a back door, and it allows us to walk out the back door and look at it and say, that's that. And there's the grace in it, right? Because if it weren't for that, we'd be stuck in that matrix forever. But once we recognize that it's a machine, once I recognize that what you're presenting most of the time is a machination of some sort, then I can just go, that's what it is. We're all doing exactly the only thing we can do right now. I ran across an interview a couple of years ago, and it was a woman who had been an undercover, worked for the CIA for 20-some years, and had been involved in all kinds of covert operations all over the world, and with some pretty nasty characters. And she said, here's the thing I've learned over my career. I've yet to meet an individual who didn't think what they were doing was in some way righteous or in service to some God or some good. Even the serial killer, those women had come and they were harlots. We rationalize the behavior. So we're all doing really the only thing we can do at any moment until we become aware of that's what's going on. And the moment that we become aware of that's what's going on, then what does that open up? Real choice, real power, real ability to clear the rubble out of the way and say, okay, if I weren't running this routine right now, what would be possible? And from that position, there is true power and true creativity. That is the blessing of being human, is that we have the ability to discover that mechanism and ultimately, if we choose, to master it. So there's the practice for the week. And good night, Mrs. Drafkin, wherever you